We're here with Jerry Ratcliffe, better known as Hootie from the good old days. Jerry's been covering Virginia since 1982, knows Virginia and the Cavaliers like the back of his hand, and obviously they're 1-2 so far this year. Jerry, what maybe stands out to you about this Virginia team? I know they struggled a little bit against NC State, losing their starting quarterback to a concussion, but what stands out to you about this current Cavalier team?
Well, John, a lot of people didn't think this was going to be a very good team, but some of us that cover them thought that they were being a little undervalued. And they played well against Duke, although Duke handed it over to them 7 times, so it's hard not to win a game like that. But they played really well down at Clemson, and a lot of people thought it would be a repeat of the ACC championship where they got blown out 62-17, but the Clemson people were very impressed with Virginia and the way they were played, and I think that's why Bronco was really disappointed in last Saturday's loss to NC State, because for the 3rd straight game, Virginia continued to get off to a slow start. They've been outscored 34-0 in the first quarter over the last 3 games. Part of that's probably because Brennan Armstrong is. Even though he's been around in the program for 2 years, it's his first year starting, and he's just developing as a quarterback, really. But I think Bronco was a little disappointed. I think they took a step back against NC State last week. They just didn't look like the same team that played against Clemson at all.
And I know too, in this COVID era, we got to see who's out there on game day, because they're not really letting you know who's not available because of the protocols and everything. I mean, that's something everyone's navigating. I guess Virginia's came out with their COVID now. I guess there's about 9 cases, but going into this weight game, I guess it's just a matter of who's out there, but traveling is a little bit more difficult, I think, now in the COVID era for these schools. Wouldn't you agree on that?
Yeah, I think so. I think in Virginia's case, I think they go straight to the hotel, have their dinner, have meetings, go to bed, and get up and go to the stadium the next day, cover the game, or play the game, and leave. So it's there's not much else to it. It's pretty basic. Virginia's been pretty transparent about its injuries and stuff. We talked to Bronco this morning, and he told us that Brennan Armstrong had a concussion Saturday. Because it's his first concussion ever, they think that there's a chance he might be back for the weight game. And if not, Lindell Stone, who finished up the game for Armstrong against State, would be the starting quarterback. And he's an interesting guy. He up until Saturday, he had only played in 4 games in his 4 years at Virginia, and was 4 of 12 passing, with 3 interceptions and only 15 yards passing. And the other day he flung it around. Kind of looked like our old Sonny Jurgensen, for the people who remember Sonny. He's 6 foot, 240 pounds, and he completed 30 of 54 passes for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he was slinging it all over the place. But I like to say that usually passing numbers are losing numbers, and so we don't know what we might expect.
Well, Lindell was well rested, obviously, after 4
Well
years.
rested, yes.
He was ready to go. Well, I know Wake's offense has been, when they're balanced, and I think that goes without saying about any team. But when they're pretty balanced, they can get that running game going that they kind of thrive on. You know, they're one of the better teams in the league. And is Virginia, their defense? Do you think they're better against the pass or the run at this point, with 3 games in?
I think probably better against the run, although you couldn't tell that last week. They, even though Travis Etienne had a pretty good rushing day, he didn't get anything hardly between the tackles, where he is normally pretty lethal. And they shut down Duke's running attack completely. NC State was able to put up 179 yards on them. Mostly the Knight kid had 101 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Okay.
So I think that's something they'll try to shore up. The secondary has given up more explosive plays this year than they were expected to, which is interesting because they're pretty uh, experienced secondary, but the Virginia's front seven is regarded as pretty darn good. So that'll be a good test between Wake's running game and Virginia's defensive front.
And I know these two teams used to have a really good rivalry, kind of, and then the expansion and the divisions, and they kind of went away. They hadn't played in a while, so it's kind of good to get these two teams back on the schedule, I think.
Yeah, it is. I guess it was like 3 years ago they played,
Yeah.
something like that, and Virginia lost down at Wake. And if I recall in that game, Wake didn't do anything really fancy. They just kind of ran it between the tackles all night, and Virginia couldn't stop them. So maybe Coach Clausen will go with that same philosophy Saturday.
Well, I know Dave, Coach Clausen's only played Virginia once. I think they're 1-0, and he's been here. This is his 7th or 8th year. So one more thing, Jerry, and I'll let you go. Do you think that because there was really no spring football and the summer camps were kind of, hit and miss, the defenses are kind of way behind? It just seems like with the scoring and everything, some of these games have turned into glorified scrimmages where it's like 7-on-7 football. Do you think that's had something to do with maybe the high scores with the defenses maybe not ready to play right away?
Yeah, I think you hit on something there, John. I really do. In fact, we even asked Bronco about that today, and he said he's been thinking a lot about that, and he thinks that's certainly a chief contributor to things, that defenses just haven't settled in yet, and offenses are having field days out there. Some of the scores are looking more like basketball scores than football scores, yeah, I think that's definitely something to that. There's so many dynamic players, and if your defense isn't really isn't buttoned down pretty good, you're going to give up some big numbers. And we've seen that all over the league and all over the country.
And before we go, Jerry, I know you got a website that the Virginia fans flock to. Just give us your website here, and I know it's been going for a couple years now, but you're really happy with it.
Yeah, I wish I'd done this 5 years ago. It's jerryratcliffe.com, and you can get all your UVA news there, and we invite people to check us out. It's free.
Wow, that's good. There's nothing much free anymore, Jerry. So,
No.
but thanks for your time, Hootie, and definitely good catching up with you. And we'll see you this weekend.
It's always great to see you, John.